stood at the observation window of the Galactic Council station and looked out at the vast emptiness of space. She was small, barely reaching 1 meter in height, with thin blue skin and large eyes that reflected the light of distant stars. Around her, the station buzzed with activity. Alien species of all sizes walked past her without looking. Some laughed. Others ignored her as if she did not exist at all. She had been here for 3 long cycles. 3 cycles since her parents left her at this station and never came back. The species was not welcome in the galaxy, knew this from the way others treated her. The tall with their muscular bodies looked down at her with disgust. The intelligent made jokes about her kind in her presence. The powerful treated her as nothing more than a small bug to step on if they felt like it. In the eyes of the great powers of the galaxy, they were weak. They were small. They were failures of evolution. His parents had understood this better than anyone. When she was born, they saw her small frame and understood that she would never be strong like a, she would never be as intelligent as a, she would never have the power of a. They felt shame. The shame grew every day until they could not bear to look at her anymore. One morning, they told her they were taking her to the station for a temporary job. They never came back. That was 3 cycles ago. Now worked as a cleaner, she swept floors. She wiped tables. She organized supplies in storage rooms. No one wanted her to do important work. Why would they trust an important task to a weak girl? She made no credits. She lived in a small room below the station. She ate simple food that other species rejected. The observation window was the one place where she felt some peace. Here, she could watch the stars and forget about the cruelty of the galaxy for a moment. A loud voice cut through her thoughts. She turned to see ambassador of the delegation walking toward her with 3 other council members. They were tall, with green skin and muscles that seemed to stretch their uniforms, was speaking loudly about the upcoming vote. They should be removed from the council entirely, said to his companions. They contribute nothing. They are genetic failures. We should find a barren world, push them all there, and be done with them. The other council members nodded in agreement. They did not seem to notice or care that was standing near them. Why would they? She was not important enough to acknowledge. Perhaps we should just eliminate them, one of them said with a cruel smile. It would be more efficient than waiting for them to die out naturally. Felt her small body shake. She turned back to the window and pretended not to hear them, but she heard every word. The vote was real. The decision to remove her species from the galactic community was being discussed right now. It was not just talk, it was policy. After the council members walked away, sat down on a bench near the window. She pulled her knees up to her chest and made herself even smaller. This was something she had learned to do well over 3 cycles. Make yourself small. Disappear. Do not give anyone a reason to hurt you. A data tablet lay on the bench next to her. Someone had left it behind, picked it up carefully. It was an educational program. She had not seen materials in a long time. Most had been destroyed or forgotten. The title said Ancient Earth History, a study of human survival. Opened the file and began to read. The file told the story of humans on a planet called Earth. Billions of years ago, humans were not the strongest creatures on their world. They were not the fastest, they were not the biggest. They were weak and vulnerable. Other animals hunted them. The climate attacked them. Diseases killed them, yet somehow humans survived. More than that, they thrived. They built civilizations. They created art and music and technology. They explored their world and eventually their entire solar system. Read about human wars and human struggles. She read about humans who refused to give up even when victory seemed impossible. She read about a human named Martin King who stood against an entire system that told him he was less than others. He was killed for this, but his words lived on and changed his world. She read about a human woman named Curie who worked in a tiny laboratory despite a world that did not want her to work at all. She made discoveries that changed everything. Felt something shift inside her chest. These humans were once weak too. They were once dismissed. They were once alone, But they did not accept this fate. They fought. They built. They refused to disappear. A notification appeared on the tablet. She had a new work assignment. Tomorrow, she would be assigned to the human delegation's floor. The humans had arrived at the station. She would serve them, clean for them, and stay out of their way. This was her job. This was her life. Save the file about human history. She would read more when she had time. For now, she held on to one thought as she walked back to her small room. Somewhere in this vast galaxy, on a world called Earth, humans had once been weak and alone, and they had survived anyway. Maybe there was hope after all. The human delegation arrived early on a morning when the station felt cold and empty. Had cleaned the delegation room since before the light cycles began. She had arranged every chair, polished every surface, and prepared everything to human specifications as requested by the station manager. She was filling the water dispensers when the door opened. A man walked in. He was tall by human standards, but not tall like a. His hair was gray at the edges, and his face showed the marks of someone who had lived a hard life. His eyes were different from the eyes of other council members. They looked at her, really looked at her. "Good morning," the man said. "I am Commander Hayes. Are you assigned to our delegation?" Nodded but did not speak. Speaking to council members sometimes invited cruelty. "What is your name?" he asked. She said quietly, "I am." Commander Hayes smiled. It was a real smile, not the false smile of someone pretending to be polite. "It is good to meet you. Thank you for preparing our room. I can see you have worked hard." He walked past her and began unpacking his things. Two other humans followed him into the room. One was a woman with kind eyes and practical clothes. The other was a younger man with alert eyes who seemed to evaluate every corner of the room. "Doctor," the woman said, introducing herself too. "And this is Lieutenant David Carter. We are the human delegation team." Nodded again. She expected them to ignore her now. Instead, Doctor asked her questions. Where were the best places to eat on the station? What was the cultural protocol for greeting other delegations? How did the council schedule its meetings? Answered each question carefully. She did not understand why they wanted to know these things from her, but she answered truthfully. That afternoon, something happened that had never experienced before. She was cleaning the common areas when Ambassador of the walked past her. He knocked a tray of food that she was carrying to the floor. The food scattered across the metal surface. Water spilled everywhere, laughed at the mess and continued walking as if nothing had happened. The other council members nearby also laughed. They watched as she bent down to clean the mess, and their laughter made her feel small, smaller than her 1 meter. She felt ashamed even though she had done nothing wrong. Commander Hayes came around the corner and saw her on her hands and knees, cleaning the scattered food. Without saying anything, he knelt down and helped her. Together they picked up the pieces and wiped the floor clean. When they finished, Commander Hayes looked her directly in the eye. "Some beings are cruel to make themselves feel big," he said. "The truth is that cruelty is a sign of weakness, not strength. Do not let anyone make you believe you deserve treatment like that." Did not know what to say. No one had ever defended her before. No one had ever helped her clean up a mess created by someone else. Over the next several days, something changed. The human delegation did things that confused the other council members. They invited to eat meals with them. Doctor taught her about Earth's plants and animals. She explained how Earth had creatures that were poisonous, creatures that hunted at night, creatures that survived in boiling water and frozen ice. The planet was dangerous, but life found ways to survive everywhere. Lieutenant Carter showed her battle footage from human history. He explained how humans had fought against enemies that seemed impossible to defeat. He showed her human military tactics based not on size or strength, but on planning, strategy, and cooperation. Humans worked together. They never gave up. They always found another way. Commander Hayes spent time talking with about history and culture. He asked her what her hopes were. What did she dream about? What did she want to accomplish? No one had ever asked her these questions before. No one had cared about her dreams. Found herself opening up. She told him about her parents and how they had left her. She told him about feeling invisible in the galaxy. She told him that she often felt like she was nothing, that her species was a mistake, that it would have been better if she had never been born. Commander Hayes listened to every word. When she finished, he said something that changed everything. Humans come from a small planet on the edge of the galaxy, he said. For thousands of years we were weak, we were slow, we were vulnerable to disease and cold and hunger. Larger predators hunted us. Other species looked down on us just like other species looked down on you, but humans did not disappear. We survived. We built civilizations. We created music and art and science. We learned to work together. We treated others with respect and kindness instead of cruelty and fear. That is why humans are strong, not because of our bodies, but because of our hearts. Listened and began to feel something she had not felt in 3 long cycles. She began to feel hope. The other delegations noticed this. The made jokes about the humans wasting their time on a weak creature. The found it amusing and ridiculous. The whispered that Commander Hayes was foolish to show respect to someone so insignificant. But Commander Hayes never changed his treatment of her. He spoke to her as an equal. He listened to her thoughts. He treated her with the same respect he showed to the ambassadors and council leaders. And began to understand something new. The way the galaxy was organized, with the strong ruling over the weak, was not the only way things could be. Humans had a different way. They built strength through cooperation. They found value in every individual. They stood beside those who were alone. For the first time since her parents left her at the station, believed that she might have a future, not because she had suddenly become strong, but because someone had looked at her and decided to see her worth. The formal vote took place in the Grand Council chamber. The room was enormous, with high ceilings and seats arranged in a great circle. Each major species had a delegation with designated voting positions. They sat on one side with their muscular bodies and aggressive posture. They occupied the central seats with their cool, calculating expressions. They filled another section with their massive forms. Dozens of other species from across the galaxy also held seats. They had one small seat in the back. It was empty because no could travel to the station safely anymore. The species was dying. Everyone knew it. The question before the council today was whether to help that death along or simply let nature take its course. Stood in the observation gallery with the human delegation. The observation gallery was a place where observers from non-voting species could watch the proceedings. She wore simple human clothing that Doctor had given her. The humans stood around her in a protective formation, though she did not fully understand this at the time. Council leader Vox banged a gavel made of dark stone. The sound echoed through the chamber. All conversation stopped immediately. "We are gathered to vote on the status of the species," Vox announced. His voice was cold and official. "Ambassador has presented a proposal for the disposition of kind. We will hear the proposal first." Ambassador stood. He was tall and proud, and he seemed to enjoy every moment of what was about to happen. "The species has proven itself to be a failure," said loudly. "They have made no significant contributions to galactic science. They have created no important technology. They have produced no military strength. They are small, weak, and evolutionarily inferior. I propose that we revoke their council membership immediately. The remaining should be relocated to Settlement World 7, a colony with harsh environmental conditions and minimal support systems. Within 100 solar cycles, their population will either establish complete self-sufficiency or face formal abandonment by the galactic community." The chamber erupted in discussion. Many voices spoke in agreement. Some species nodded their approval. They especially seemed pleased with the proposal. One of their representatives stood and spoke. "The logic is sound," they said. A species that cannot defend itself, cannot innovate, and cannot contribute has no place in the galactic community. Settlement World 7 is a reasonable disposition. The harsh conditions will either eliminate the species or force them to adapt. Either way, we will no longer bear the burden of their existence. Felt her chest tighten. This was real. This was not a threat or a cruel joke. This was actual policy. Her entire species was being voted out of existence. Doctor put a hand on shoulder. Understood that it was meant as comfort, but she could not feel comforted. Her people were dying. The galaxy was voting to make it official. A council member stood. I move to accept Ambassador's proposal, she said coldly. They represent a waste of resources. Seconded, said immediately. Vox looked across the chamber. Before we vote, does any delegation wish to speak? This is a formal vote on a matter of council policy. Silence. No one spoke. No one wanted to waste their voice on defending a dying species. Then Commander Hayes stood up. The entire chamber turned to look at him. Humans were not known for interrupting formal council proceedings. Humans were observers, not participants. The act of standing was itself shocking. I wish to speak, Commander Hayes said in a clear voice. Vox hesitated, but protocol was protocol. You may speak, human delegation leader. Commander Hayes did not shout. He did not rage. He spoke in a quiet, steady voice that somehow filled the entire chamber. The logic of Ambassador is built on a false assumption, he began. That species with physical strength are superior to species with other qualities. Humans are not the strongest species on Earth. We do not have the largest teeth. We do not run the fastest. We do not have the hardest skin. Yet we conquered our world. We did so through the qualities that you seem to value least in this chamber. We did so through cooperation, through problem solving, through never giving up when victory seemed impossible. He paused and looked directly at the delegations. I have studied your history, he continued. They conquered their world through military might. Good, that is a valid path, but you have made no significant scientific advances in the last 5,000 cycles. They rely on your strength and your numbers, but a single creative innovation can outmatch raw power. A single human with an idea can accomplish what 1,000 soldiers cannot. You dismiss these as weak because they are small, but size is not the only measure of value. I believe you have made a grave mistake. Your belief is irrelevant, Vox said coldly. They have failed. The vote will proceed, all in favor of the proposal. The hands rose almost immediately, and many others, even some species that thought might be sympathetic, voted in favor. The message was clear. The species was unwanted. The vote was called. They were officially expelled from the council. They were assigned to Settlement World 7. Their time was running out. As guards moved toward the observation gallery to clear the room after the vote, Commander Hayes stepped directly in front of them. He positioned himself between the guards and, "This human will remain with our delegation as a research liaison," he said firmly. "We formally request permission to take her into our care." The guards looked confused. Vox laughed from his seat. "You wish to keep one of the worthless creatures? Very well. The humans are known for unusual choices. Permission granted. Do what you wish with her." The Yen found this hilarious. A human actually wanted to protect her. It seemed impossible, foolish, illogical. As the chamber cleared, Commander Hayes guided and the delegation out of the council chamber. She was shaking. Her species had just been sentenced to death or exile. But she was not alone. A human had stood against the entire council for her. A human had challenged the most powerful forces in the galaxy. That night back in the human delegation quarters, finally allowed herself to cry. Not just for her own pain, but for her entire species. All the scattered across the galaxy would face cruelty and dismissal. All the young would grow up knowing that the galactic community had voted to eliminate them. Commander Hayes sat beside her as she cried. He said nothing. Sometimes, he explained to Doctor and Lieutenant Carter, the most powerful thing you can do is simply sit beside someone and acknowledge their pain. And as wept, she understood that the council's vote was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Whatever came next would be defined not by the cruelty of those in power, but by the choices of those who chose to stand beside her. The station's biological research laboratory was a vast space filled with machines and containers. Samples of genetic material from hundreds of species filled the storage systems. Doctor had secured access to this lab as part of the human delegation's formal scientific rights. She invited to work with her. At first was nervous. She was not trained as a scientist. She had worked as a cleaner, not a researcher, but Doctor was patient. She explained each instrument and its purpose. She showed how to collect samples carefully and prepare them for analysis. They began by studying genetic samples. Doctor had collected samples from and had access to archived genetic data from the Council's scientific archives. She explained that DNA carried information that determined their physical form, their mental abilities, and their potential as a species. "We need to understand why your species is being dismissed as inferior," Doctor said as she worked. "If we can find qualities that the Council overlooked, we might be able to change their minds, or at least help your people understand their own value." The work took weeks. Doctor and would spend long hours examining genetic structures and analyzing data. Slowly, patterns began to emerge from the information. One morning, Doctor called over to look at a screen displaying the structure of neural DNA. The visualization showed a complex pattern of crystalline structures within the genetic code. These structures were unlike anything Doctor had seen in other species. "Look at this," Doctor said, pointing to the pattern. "This crystalline structure is unique to the species. Every single sample shows the same pattern." "What does it mean?" asked. Doctor pulled up comparison data from other species. The neural DNA was simple and strong. The DNA showed high complexity in certain areas. The DNA demonstrated raw genetic power, but none of them had anything like the structures. "I think these crystals enhance neural plasticity," Doctor said slowly. "Plasticity is the brain's ability to adapt and change rapidly. It means can learn quickly. It means you can solve new problems faster than other species. It also means your species can collectively process information in ways that other species cannot." She pulled up more data. She showed how communities throughout history had worked together to solve problems. She pointed out that the greatest contributions to science had come from collective efforts, from groups of working together as one thinking unit. "Your species is not weak," Doctor said. "You are specialized. You are designed for rapid adaptation and problem-solving in difficult environments. They are strong. They are intelligent in their own way. But you have something different. You have a gift for survival through adaptation and collective intelligence." Stared at the data. All her life, she had believed she was weak because she was small. She had accepted the judgment of the galaxy that her species was a failure. But this data told a different story. "We need to prove this to the Council," said. Doctor shook her head. "The Council will not listen. They have already made their decision. But we can share this information with the scientific community. We can put it where human scientists and researchers from other species can find it. Truth spreads slowly, but it spreads." She also suggested something else. Something that seemed impossible at first but made sense when Doctor explained it. "Your people need practical help to survive on Settlement World 7, Doctor said. If they can establish themselves there, if they can show that they can prosper even in harsh conditions, the Council will have no choice but to reconsider their judgment. We can help them." Lieutenant Carter became involved in the plan. He spent time analyzing data on Settlement World 7. The climate was harsh. The soil was poor. The existing structures were minimal, but they had made a critical error. They had sent them to a world with extreme environmental conditions. They expected this to crush a weak species. What they did not understand was that these exact conditions would activate the gift. A species with rapid adaptation, collective problem-solving, and genetic plasticity would thrive in conditions that forced innovation and cooperation. "Tell me about Earth," asked Commander Hayes one evening as he reviewed the reports. "Earth is a harsh planet," said. "It has weather that destroys civilizations. It has diseases that kill millions. It has volcanic eruptions and earthquakes and tsunamis. It has predators that hunt humans for food. Humans were weak compared to these forces, but humans survived by adapting, by working together, by never giving up." He leaned forward and spoke intensely. "Your species will do the same on Settlement World 7. They think they are punishing you by sending you to a harsh world, but a harsh world forces adaptation, and your people are masters of adaptation." The human delegation began sending messages to the settlements on Settlement World 7. Commander Hayes offered human agricultural knowledge. He offered climate data collected over thousands of cycles. He offered architectural designs for buildings that could withstand extreme weather. He offered medical technology and biological adaptation strategies. He framed it not as charity but as trade. He asked for scientific collaboration in return. He wanted them to bring their collective intelligence to human research problems. He wanted to learn from their unique perspective. The leaders on Settlement World 7 were skeptical at first. Why would humans help them after the Council had rejected them? But Commander Hayes was patient. He explained that humans understood what it meant to be dismissed. Humans understood what it meant to be underestimated. Humans had survived by proving everyone wrong. Over the following cycles, human partnerships began, worked with human scientists on genetic adaptation problems, helped human researchers understand how to survive in extreme environments. The collaboration produced results that neither species could have achieved alone. Back at the station, Doctor and completed their research. They compiled everything into a comprehensive document explaining genetic advantages. The document was scientific, factual, and undeniable. Doctor uploaded it to scientific databases across human space. She distributed it to researchers throughout the galaxy. The document began to circulate. Some scientists dismissed it. Others began their own research to verify the findings. Slowly, the truth about genetics began to spread through the scientific community. Understood now that she was not weak. The crystalline structures in her neural DNA proved it. She had a gift that the galaxy had failed to recognize. Her small body and her quiet nature were not signs of weakness. They were signs of a different kind of strength. And on Settlement World 7, the first crops began to grow in the poor soil. The first structures rose in the harsh climate, and Young looked at what their species was building and felt hope for the first time in generations. 3 solar cycles had passed since that day when the Council voted to eliminate the species. Now stood once again at the observation window of the Galactic Council station. But she was not alone, and she was not afraid. Behind her in the observation gallery stood members of the new scientific delegation. Young, who had traveled from Settlement World 7 to represent their species. They walked with confidence now. They understood their value. They understood that being small did not mean being weak. The transformation of Settlement World 7 had surprised everyone. They had sent them to a harsh world expecting them to fail or die slowly. Instead, they had thrived. Their rapid adaptation and collective intelligence had solved problem after problem. They had transformed the poor soil into fertile farmland. They had built structures that withstood the extreme weather. They had created a thriving community in conditions that seemed impossible for survival. The human scientific partnership had produced breakthrough discoveries. Working together, they had solved the genetic basis of several diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. They had developed new agricultural methods that could work in almost any environment. They had created architectural designs that could withstand even the most extreme planetary conditions. The scientific community could not ignore these achievements. Research papers authored by and humans appeared in every major journal. The names and doctor appeared together on discoveries that changed galactic science. Slowly, the perception of the species began to shift. The N resisted this change. They did not want to admit they had been wrong. They did not want to accept that a species they had dismissed was actually valuable. But truth is difficult to deny. Evidence is difficult to ignore. The Galactic Council was forced to hold another vote. This one was about restoring representation. Watched from the observation gallery as the vote took place. This time, they could not vote against the without appearing foolish. The scientific evidence was overwhelming. The abstained, refusing to vote either way. The surprised everyone by voting in support, recognizing that they had been wrong. When the vote was final, they had not just regained their council seat. They had been formally recognized as a species of great value to the galactic community. The council established a special research position specifically for scientists, and barely 3 solar cycles after being assigned as a servant to a human delegation, was named as the youngest ambassador in council history. Other young followed in her path. They pursued positions in science, in diplomacy, in technology development. They traveled to human space and to other corners of the galaxy. They proved again and again that their species had value that no one had bothered to recognize before. The most profound change, however, happened among themselves. Parents who had felt shame at giving birth to small children now felt pride. They looked at its achievements and saw that their children could achieve great things too. The practice of abandoning children stopped. Young no longer hid or tried to make themselves smaller. They understood that being small was not a curse. It was a gift. Their ancestors had survived on harsh worlds. Their genetics carried the memory of survival. Their brains had evolved to solve impossible problems. On the day of the official council vote restoring rights, went to the human delegation quarters to find Commander Hayes packing his belongings. His assignment on the station was complete. The human diplomatic mission had accomplished what it set out to do. It was time for him to return to human space. "You are leaving," said. Commander Hayes smiled. It was the same smile she had seen on that first morning when he knelt down to help her clean up spilled food. "My mission here is finished. Your people no longer need me to fight for them. You can stand on your own now." "Will you come back?" asked. "Perhaps," said, "but you will not need me to. You have everything you need now. You have proven your worth. The galaxy knows your value, and more importantly, you know your own value." He sat down and looked at carefully. "When I met you, you were invisible. The galaxy had decided you were not worth seeing. But invisibility is not the same as weakness. Many invisible things are actually the strongest forces. Water is invisible as vapor, but it carves through mountains. Wind is invisible, but it shapes worlds. Ideas are invisible, but they change everything." He paused. "Your species was invisible to the galaxy, but you were always strong. You always had value. Someone just had to be willing to look and see it. That is something humans learned a long time ago. When you look at others and really see them, you often find strength where others see only weakness." "Why did you help us?" asked. "Your own people did not ask you to. The council did not ask you to. You could have ignored my species like everyone else." Commander Hayes thought for a moment. "Because my species learned long ago that protecting the vulnerable makes you stronger, not weaker. That lifting others up does not diminish you. It multiplies you. When a human sees someone sitting alone, we believe it is our responsibility to stand beside them. That is what makes us strong, not our weapons, not our technology, but our choice to care for each other and for those who are different from us." He stood and closed his case. "Go do great things. Change your world. Show the galaxy that worth is not determined by size or strength or the opinion of those in power. It is determined by what you choose to do with the opportunity you are given." Watched Commander Hayes and his delegation leave the station. She stood at the observation window where she had first stood alone, afraid and invisible. Now Young stood beside her. The Yin no longer laughed at her species. The council recognized their value. The galaxy was beginning to understand. As she watched ship depart toward human space, thought about everything she had learned. She thought about how one human commander's choice to treat her with respect had rippled across star systems. She thought about how a single act of kindness had transformed an entire species' future. The universe was still vast and competitive. Powerful species still dominated weaker ones. The galaxy had not changed its fundamental nature. But one human had shown that the future did not have to be determined by what the powerful decided. The future could be shaped by those with courage enough to stand beside the invisible. And as turned from the window to walk back to the council chambers, where she had work to do as the youngest ambassador in history, she whispered a promise to the who would come after her. She promised that she would remember what Commander Hayes had taught her. She promised that she would stand beside those who were alone. She promised that she would see the invisible and lift them up. Because that, she had finally understood, was the greatest strength of all. Not the strength of conquest or domination, but the strength of compassion, the strength of choosing to see value in others, the strength of standing beside those the galaxy had abandoned. The future of the species had just begun.